Welcome to For Real I Do with Brittany Ellis, the unfiltered side of weddings. From planning truths to vendor insights to navigating design, culture, and family dynamics, this is for couples who crave clarity and vendors ready to elevate. Your insider pass with just a little oversharing. Welcome back to For Real I Do, the podcast where couples can listen, learn, and discover more practical ways to navigate their planning and married life with confidence. I'm your host, Brittany Ellis, and today we're diving into a topic that touches nearly every engaged couple, which is money. Not just to spend on a wedding, but how to balance all the priorities that come with building a life together, purchasing a home, paying off potentially student loans, planning meaningful travel, growing savings, and still creating a wedding celebration that feels authentic to who you both are as a couple. Financial decisions are sort of one of those things that touch every part of the engagement journey. And today's couples are approaching those decisions very differently than previous generations. The conversation really is no longer about creating a wedding budget. It's about aligning your values, your goals, and your experiences that matter most to you at the beginning of this next chapter together. So joining me today is Sara Margulis. She is the founder and CEO of HoneyFund. And while many people are first discovering HoneyFund through appearances via Shark Tank, the company really has been around for about 20 years and has since become one of the most trusted resources, helping couples to navigate wedding spending, gifting, travel, and financial planning. Today, we're going to explore how modern couples are redefining priorities, what experiences are becoming meaningful as opposed to traditional gifts, and what financial success really looks like for you as you begin your married life together. Sara, welcome to the show. We are so glad to have her with us. So today we're diving into something every engaged couple is thinking about right now, which is essentially their wedding budget, their money, right? Not just wedding budgets, but how couples are balancing weddings, travel, student loans, buying a house, and really building a life together. So joining us today is Sara Margulis. She's the CEO and founder of HoneyFund, and many of you may know her from obviously Shark Tank. We've had her on the podcast before, and her wealth of knowledge we just felt like was a really great time to be chatting about, because I feel like the spiral of budgets and conversations surrounding travel are real right now in our industry. And so without further ado, welcome, Sara. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you, Brittany, for having me. I'm really excited to come back a year later and talk about what's new in the wedding space. Things are changing so fast in every way in our lives, and weddings are no exception.
Yeah, wedding definitely are no exception for sure. I mean, before we dig in, for listeners who maybe are not familiar with your story, maybe can you just tell us essentially what originally inspired you to really create HoneyFund, and maybe just an overview of what that really does to support couples today?
Yeah, so HoneyFund started out of my own need. I was getting married in 2005, and I already had everything I needed for my home, but I didn't have the budget for the dream honeymoon. And so my then fiance and I created a makeshift honey fund. Our friends and family went crazy for it, and they gave us more than $5,000 for our dream trip to Fiji, which we then took, and it was everything we hoped it would be. When we got back, our wedding guests were just really raving about the concept, and they were like, "You guys should build this for other couples." So that's what we did. And Honey Fund turned 20 this year. And now we've served more than 1.7 million couples, almost $1 billion gifted. And really, we're just here to make sure that couples can make their whole entire wedding budget work, right? Whether that's money for the honeymoon, money for the wedding itself, other savings goals or financial goals. And it allows you to just receive the gift of cash, but you get to present it in a way that makes givers feel really good about giving, because it's something that they can connect to, like a travel experience or helping you get into your first home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the concept is brilliant. So good for you for capitalizing on it. I had no idea it was 20 years old. That's amazing. I love that. When you look back now, I'm just curious of 20 years of being in this, what surprises you most, about sort of wedding planning and gifting, and how that's really changed now that Honey Fund has become available for couples, because obviously the whole standard bring a box gift or register for
Yeah.
something is really not something a lot of couples are talking about now. And I think that you've really paved the way for that.
Yeah. Let me set the stage of a 2005 wedding, just to remind us all how weddings used to be. And then I think it'll be clear how much it's changed. So when I was planning my own wedding, it was 150 guests in a chapel with a, reception hall and, sit down meal and caterers and all the things. Very sort of like what we considered to be more of a traditional format at that time. My wedding registries were Bed Bath and Beyond, Macy's. These are companies that like really have struggled to even survive the
Right.
changes that have happened since 2005 in the broader retail environment. Wedding gifts were very much boxed and brought to the wedding, and you had a gift table. It was it's just everything's so different now. I mean, from where you're registering, number one wedding registry in the country is actually Amazon, followed by, some of the other retailers and then the cash registries like HoneyFund. You also had back then where you had, like I said, 150 guests on average. Averages are under 100, where you had, a Saturday kind of sit down affair. Now you have more couples getting married on weekdays or doing it slightly differently in a public space, a stand up wedding, an elopement. Micro weddings are huge right now. And all of this, I think, together points to two things. Number one, couples are just traditional sort of etiquette focused, like how it needs to be done, is just not as important to modern couples. They've grown up on the internet. They see a wide range of the ways couples have gotten married or what people do in other cultures. And they just don't have the money to do the traditional formula, which at the time was averaging $35,000 in cost.
Mhm.
Today's average wedding price tag, if you take out all the like 1% weddings, is like $15,000. It's like a very different landscape we're in today.
Yeah, it's very different for sure. And I think that is a good reflection of just in general, like couples and the passing of times. It's so funny as I'm listening to you just talk about like box gifts and a gift table. I'm like, it already feels like such like a time that really was a season in our lives that has come and gone because I know that working with brides now, we have maybe like a gift box per se, but we don't really have it. Definitely haven't had a gift table in a while now.
Yeah.
So you're totally right. I mean, I just think couples in general are looking at navigating if guests feel so inclined to give a gift, like there's a different way of essentially doing that.
Yeah, everything's moved online. Even if you do buy a traditional box gift, it's gonna get
100%.
shipped directly to the couple and not brought to the wedding, right? And
Yeah.
then if you're buying an experience gift, that's gonna be processed online and the couple's gonna be notified online. Maybe you'll bring a card to the wedding just as a
Mhm.
physical sort of expression of your feelings and, good wishes for the couple. But yeah, gifting has changed so much.
I'm curious because that kind of segues me obviously into budget and how I feel like, obviously this platform has been really supportive for obviously a lot of couples. You have visibility, I would say, to hundreds, if not thousands of couples. And what are some of the biggest financial pressures that you're seeing couples sort of manage or having to navigate even 5 years ago than they had to originally?
Yeah, so we actually ran a study last year to learn about kind of just wedding and honeymoon planning trends for 2026 couples. And so these were couples that were already in our system that we knew were getting married in 26 that could tell us a little bit about like how they're approaching things.
Yeah.
And from a budget side, what we learned is that most couples are not confident in their budget. They don't really know how much it's going to cost and they don't know if they'll be able to afford it. They're going to ChatGPT to find financial solutions and answers. And of course, HoneyFund is often recommended by LLMs, chatbots. And because it's a way for couples to just take the edge off their budget, right? And besides the actual cash gifting platform, we also offer tons of content and insights for couples that are planning weddings on a budget, weddings under $5,000, weddings under 10,000. We can help couples kind of understand the formulas and formats that they're not going to see on a traditional wedding planning site. It's really the structure of those companies is um, to drive like advertising revenue, and they do that by promoting sort of a higher ticket, more traditional wedding.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's so interesting because I think also just in general, it's no shame on couples and families in terms of, the budget that they have put together towards weddings. Like I say this all the time where it's like I have parents that will literally be like, Brittany, we met with a financial advisor like when
Yeah.
our child was like just born and we planned for this milestone in their lives. Like we're
Yeah.
excited to contribute and to make this a celebration, but it's literally no lie that it's like times three what they expected, even with financial advisor support.
Right.
I'm talking obviously more in the realm of multicultural, maybe multi-day functions for
Yes.
my clientele. But I think that it is a difficult thing to grasp because you've got couples obviously that are in lifestyle changes, whether that be that they're finishing school and who knows if they've got, student loans, they're obviously going to be probably looking to merge households or, purchase a home if they're already living together, things to that end. And, if I had to take sort of an analysis. I get asked this all the time, like, how much is this going to cost me? I'm like, well, for a multi-day occasion, like where you're hosting a welcome party and then you're hosting a lunch the next day and then you're hosting a dinner next day, usually around like $2,000 per attendee for
Mm.
at least the South Asian wedding is what we're seeing. And
Sure.
I'm sure even for brides, we call them white dress weddings, but it's applicable for them that maybe the range isn't as high just because maybe they're not hosting as many functions. But I
Mhm.
think that really just boils down to, having to be really creative with quite frankly the number of people that you're inviting. And if it goes to show, and maybe this is a bad way to say it, but quite frankly, your fund could be, hey, contribute towards our honeymoon, but nobody really needs to know. Maybe that's going towards helping you to financially also pay for the wedding. I don't know what your thoughts are on that or if that's
Yeah, I mean, we do see couples obviously giving themselves some flexibility around how they ultimately spend the money.
Mhm.
But they usually have an idea ahead of time if they're registering for like the dream honeymoon and they're listing all the costs associated with it and the friends and family are gifting directly to those things, they're going to go ahead and take that trip and put the money towards that.
Yes.
If it's more like, "Hey, help us get our life started together," help us fund the honeymoon or cost of the wedding, then they're more flexible and free to spend it however they want. But I do think it's really interesting what you said about guest count because
Mhm.
one thing that you wouldn't think is sort of like goes against like standard like economies of scale kind of thinking is that the more guests you have, the more it costs you per guest to put that wedding on. So you
Yes.
don't just save money by having fewer guests, you also save on the per guest cost, right? I just saw
Yeah.
this stat come out recently from the wedding report. So really interesting many ways to solve the where's the money coming from problem. And we
Mhm.
actually have a one-page wedding plan that's basically kind of a budgeting exercise that helps you figure it all out. So you sit down and you say, okay, how much do we have in our savings? How much time do we have to continue to save?
Mhm.
If we each put $100 a month into a savings account between now and 18 months from now, how much does
Mhm.
that add up to, right? Which friends and family are going to be here? Your parents, my parents, aunts and uncles, like, let's have conversations with them and see how much we can pull from that. And then the honey fund. Is this going to the honeymoon? Is this going to wedding costs? Are we going to keep it more
Right.
flexible? And we see a lot of couples today having a more flexible, sort of just open ended gifting, page. And it's
Mhm.
not because they are just want to take the money and run. It's because we just need financial flexibility in this day and
Right.
age.
Right.
Have you seen the price of, like, a bag of coffee lately? I mean, it's unreal how expensive everything is. I live in Northern California. Gas is $6 a gallon. Like, I literally was buying coffee yesterday. It was, like, Starbucks or something, $12 for a bag of coffee. I'm like, "What is going on? This is insane," right? So
Yeah.
imagine now timesing that by 150, 200 guests, over multiple days.
Mhm.
Where's that money coming from? Couples need real solutions.
Yeah, I absolutely couldn't agree with you more. And I think it is one of those things. I will actually link that exercise in the show notes because I think that's actually going to be really helpful for couples. I think one of the things that we were sort of talking about, obviously, during our coffee chat, sort of offline, was, the rise of destination weddings due to the fact that obviously budget has become such a, it's not that it wasn't a conversation before, but I think just like inflation, you know, things are really happening. Labor fees are high. Like you mentioned, bags of coffee are high. So, talk to me about what you think in terms of what's your perspective of couples hosting destination events? Does that help financially? Does it hurt them financially? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's funny. We see kind of 2 different sides of it. So, first of all, our couples told us that about 30% of them were planning a destination wedding,
Hmm.
and 2/3 of those were actually not international, they were in the US. And so when we dug a little deeper into finding out, like, why are you having a destination wedding in the US?
Hmm.
We're talking to US couples here.
Right.
A lot of them said, "I'm looking for a more affordable market to host my wedding," right? And
Hmm.
they're kind of like saying, "All right, we have connections to this city because we went to college there, or this city because it's where we met, or this city because one or both of us is from that city." And that's where they're actually holding their wedding because they can find a more affordable solution there.
Right.
Like, well, that was really, really interesting. I also, see destination wedding as this sort of shift of the budget away from like the white dress wedding, like you talked about, or the one big day kind of format
Hmm.
to get into an experience.
Yeah.
And we all want to have experiences. Like travel is more important to people than ever. It's what makes us feel alive and like, get out of the day-to-day hustle and bustle and the depressing price of coffee and just go like enjoy ourselves, right?
Right.
And so couples are pairing their travel dreams or their bucket list with their wedding and or their honeymoon.
Hmm.
So we're just seeing a lot of money shifting out of the sort of traditional wedding industry and into the travel industry, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
And I think it really comes down to like the experiences that couples want to have and then the experience they want to plan for their guests, like if our guests are going to go to the trouble of showing up to this thing, like we're going to make it cool, we're going to make it fun,
Yeah.
we're going to make it something that we'll all remember for years.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And, to add to that, I would say, you know, majority of the clients that I actually work with, they are destination weddings. They do not live, in the state of Florida. They are not, they're hosting their events here. And I think another big variable is because, like, if you're hosting somewhere in your hometown, let's say, you're going to tend to get a lot more yeses than nos, right? And so
Yes.
when you're hosting a destination wedding, I think it's sort of also like couples feel bad because they're like, oh, we're going
Mhm.
to ask these people to get a flight. And then on the flip side of that, they're like, oh, maybe not as many people will come because,
Yes.
that, I mean, it plays into the bottom line too, and how many
Yes.
people arrive and what experience that they can essentially deliver.
Absolutely. I do think destination weddings are a good way to kind of keep the guest list manageable without feeling like, oh, I didn't invite everyone I wanted to
Right.
invite. However, it can backfire on you because if you plan something that great
I
and
know,
people
right?
who love to travel, they're like, we're going to that wedding.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, you don't almost like want to like shoot yourself in the foot in that
Yeah.
way. I'm curious from your take if, when they're doing destination weddings and they want to create this experience, is there anything that you're seeing on trend that couples are doing aside from the destination that really enhances the overall weekend, or things that you're seeing couples potentially splurge on? I know that obviously every couple sort of does this a little bit differently, but I'm curious if there's like a formula for it that maybe also will help them to maybe not spend that
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. When we ask couples, like, why are you choosing a destination wedding? A lot of them said, like, we're looking for that scenic Instagram backdrop, like, right? So they actually end up saving money on photography because you can't take a bad photo in that place.
Yeah, totally
So, like,
true.
that's one interesting, like, thing you wouldn't think about. We talked about fulfilling travel dreams, checking bucket list items off. I think that's an amazing way to,
Mhm.
you know, put something you're gonna spend a lot of money on towards a bucket destination like that.
Mhm.
You're not gonna end up spending extra money to go to that place after that,
Sure,
right?
true.
All-inclusive packages, especially on your honeymoon, are a great way to save money and, like, something you wouldn't think, but, like, the travel in and of itself, like, when you put your wedding in a place that does all-inclusive or you put your honeymoon in a place, it just everything's, like, gonna be more manageable. You're gonna have, like, a really clear idea of how much it's gonna cost, and you're gonna avoid the opportunity for things to kinda balloon out of control, right? Because it's just one set price.
Right. I know you're a big advocate for couples going on a honeymoon. Like, don't skip the honeymoon.
Yes.
I guess I'm curious, what role do you feel like the honeymoon really plays for couples,
Mhm.
like for newlyweds, right? Because obviously they've spent a year plus planning this extravaganza for their friends and family. And, there's probably countless hours and conversations that go into it. But then the honeymoon sort of just gets like left by the wayside, like, we'll get to it when we get to it. I mean, what are your thoughts pertaining to the importance of a honeymoon?
Yeah, so we do see, um, there's couples that, of course, still take their honeymoon right after the wedding, and then there's a lot more couples these days that are earmarking some time, maybe 6 months or a year after to actually give it the attention it deserves, right?
Sure.
So making time for planning it, making time to save a little more money for it, or make sure all those honey fund gifts are in,
Mhm.
making time like off work, like making sure that's set aside and like it works for both of them because sometimes taking the time off for the wedding and then the honeymoon is
Right.
a little bit difficult. So we see couples doing that. Of course, some of those couples never end up taking that trip, and that is the risk, right? If you don't take it all together and you don't tell your boss like I'm getting married and I'm going on my honeymoon, like I'm out of
Right.
here. No
Right.
boss is going to tell you you can't do that, right?
Right.
So, if you don't do it, like, when you got the chance, sometimes it ends up getting, left. And
Mhm.
the importance of the honeymoon is really 2 things. 1, you just need a minute after all the wedding planning and everything's over to just, like, sink into being married. And we
Yeah.
talked about this last time I was on the show. Couples, have just planned the biggest event of their lives. They probably some of them never have even planned any kind of event before, and it's just very stressful. It's surely, like, tested their relationship in lots of ways. It's tested their ability to have boundaries with their in-laws and friends and family and brought up etiquette issues and drama. It's stressful, so you have to have a minute to just relax and, like, reset your body's, like, nervous system, right? And
Mhm.
do it in a place together where you can really, like, focus on loving each other through that reset.
Yeah.
And once you've done that and you've come home, now you're kind of ready to start your marriage. And that's like a whole nother sort of endeavor, right? Like the wedding is only just day one. And being able to focus on and talk about what's next for us, are we going to have kids or not? Like all the stuff that like you kind of start to be able to think about once you're actually married. I think it's important to have that time. And then the second thing is it really just gives you like a way to practice relationship skills, right? So like having a honeymoon, using travel as a way to get away from it all and reconnect with each other is a relationship skill. It's a
Yeah.
tool in your toolkit that you can take with you throughout your marriage. And I actually saw something the other day that like really clicked for me as somebody who has been married and divorced. I was a therapist, I think, and she said, being in love with your partner is not a choice. It's a capacity. And I was like, whoa,
Mhm.
because as somebody who was, in a marriage where like had almost no capacity anymore because of work and kids and,
Yeah.
everything, it just like really, I really understood that. And like travel gives you that space and that capacity to drop all the stress, to like sink back in with each other and reconnect and like make your love real, right? To
Yeah.
choose your love, but you have to be able to like make room for it first. And so that's just a tool that you can take with you through your marriage. Anytime you're like, we're both out of capacity, plan a trip, spend the time, even if it's just a staycation or a
Right.
weekly date night or whatever, plan some time to like make space for each other. That's how you keep love alive.
Yeah, I mean, literally, that could not be a more true statement. And I think, especially, it might be hard for like younger couples listening who obviously don't have kids yet to understand, but like you soon will when you do have
Yes.
children,
Yes.
where it's essentially like your time is not your own again. And I'm a big advocate too for doing that travel experience together. And we'll talk also about just like other travel related to the wedding, because not that there's just like endless funds to go around, but I think if you can be really intentional about looking not just at the wedding, right, but looking at the honeymoon as part of the wedding. And then on top of that, you're looking at like, the bachelor and bachelorette party
Yeah.
time that you're going to have with your friends, like, any of the mini moons, whatever it is. But there's so much travel that pertains to the wedding that I think that sometimes couples can sort of make them maybe just, you're not planning a wedding every single day, but like oversight in terms of not thinking about those things. So it's like the honeymoon goes on the back burner, but then they think about the friend's bachelorette party, and then it's like, oh yeah, but how are we all going to pay for this? I mean, everyone's splitting an Airbnb, I guess, or whatever. But I think that's a big part of it too, and having these experiences and having this time with friends and family, because otherwise the wedding celebration is obviously a momentous occasion. It's an event that you'll never forget. It's a fabulous once in a lifetime celebration. I mean, how often do you get to be celebrated for your union? Like
Yeah.
none. It's like this
Right.
is the day.
Right.
And I totally agree with you that being able to be intentional and have some time for a honeymoon or for other events is also just equally, I feel like, really important.
Yeah, it is. It's just part of the whole balance. And it kind of like I said, it gives you a chance to just kind of like ease out of wedding planning and into your marriage. It's a transitionary period. And it's just, why not? I mean, everybody wants to go somewhere great. And why not do it with the person you love the most in the world and make it your own special celebration of being
Hmm.
married?
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious based on all of your research and knowledge, why do you think that this like younger sort of new generation is prioritizing experiences over like physical gifts? You
Yeah.
know, what is that big transition really even about?
Yeah, I see 2 things that I think contribute to it. Number 1, you can buy anything you need for your house or your yard or whatever at
Mhm.
Walmart for like $3 or $30. It's no longer like a huge financial hardship to just like furnish your home, for example, right? So having to like being focused on things and accumulating things and saving for things is just not as it's just not as much of a focus as it used to be. People can get all that stuff pretty financially affordable. So now it's like, what am I going to save for? What are my financial goals? Right. And travel
Mhm.
is just a big financial goal for people. And I think the experience part of it, the experience economy, the travel industry coming online and making travel planning more accessible to people. And then like the Instagram sort of like social media culture, like, look at this great thing I did. You're constantly salivating at great things your friends are doing
Of
online,
course.
influencers are doing online, travel wise. And yeah, it's just like, I want to do that. So it's one part like it's more accessible and one part making it like so in your face that,
Mhm.
you know, it's just top of mind more often, I think. So
Yeah.
what do you think?
No, I think that totally makes sense. I mean, and couples, quite frankly, I think the platform's great because I had a couple literally the other day that was actually linking their honey fund to their wedding website. And I was like, this is so great. If I was like, if you have any questions, I know the owner. So just
Oh,
let me
nice.
know.
Right.
But, it was really seamless and they didn't actually because a lot of couples are like, "Oh, do I need to break this out and categorize like I'm gonna go on a scuba trip and I'm gonna, here's my dinner." I said, "No, I was going to say, even for couples who maybe don't value travel as much as other couples and then utilize that for your starter home, right? There's
Yeah.
certainly other life events that you can utilize that cash to support you, right?
Yes.
Or to pay for some of the wedding. You know,
Yes.
I hate to say it, but
Absolutely. Or
you know,
even to start your retirement account. I mean, $35,000 invested on day 1 of your
yeah.
marriage is 1.2 million at retirement.
Yeah. Oh my god, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's
like, done.
right. Yeah.
You just retire early and be done with it.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, I've got a couple rapid fire questions for you before we close because I just think it's really important to just ask some of these things.
Yeah.
Okay. So in your opinion, would you splurge on guest experience or decor?
I think guest experience because, like I said, decor can be the cliffside, park where you're holding your wedding or some beautiful nature space or an interesting museum or something.
Mhm.
And all of that is a better guest experience than drapes.
Agreed. Agreed. What, in your opinion, is the best honeymoon destination right now?
I think the best of all time is Italy because of, like, the romance and the food
Mhm.
and the drinking and the music and the culture is just so perfect for romance. But the most popular one of the most popular right now is Japan. It's like Japan is on fire. Everybody wants to go there right now.
Oh, I love it. Oh my God. I mean, who wouldn't? It's absolutely gorgeous over there. Okay. One budget item that couples are consistently underestimating.
I gotta say guest count. I
Mhm.
mean, it's just really the number 1 driver of the cost.
Percent second that it is completely tied to the number of events, the number of meals, and the number of people coming. That
Yeah.
100% dictate your guest count. What is one registry item, if they are going to be doing a registry, that you definitely feel like couples do not need?
Registry item they don't need. Honestly, I'm a big proponent of just registering for what you want. Like,
Hmm.
if you want a really fancy espresso machine, like, go for it. It's a great time to, like, splurge. You know what I mean? Like, your
Yeah.
guests wanna give you something that you're excited about. You actually said this on our last interview. You said guests wanna feel pride in the gift they gave. And
Yeah.
I listened to that again recently. I was like, "God, that is so it." Like, give guests something that they would feel proud to give you. And so if it's something you don't need but you want, do it. Who cares? Register.
Yeah, I completely agree because I definitely made the mistake of like registering for like stock my kitchen. It was like I registered for everything down from like the microwave to like the toaster oven. And I'm like, not that I don't use that, but it's like looking back, it's like I could have totally registered for something that I actually would have really used that,
Yeah.
could have been a little bit different anyway. Just
Yeah,
curious.
it's very different, like, when you use this, like, spatula that somebody gave you, versus when you use the espresso machine, it's, like, a different, like, you know?
100%. Yes, absolutely. Every time I'm making my coffee, I think of my uncle so and so that gave it to me. What is one piece of advice that every engaged couple you think should hear?
Sit down and have an honest conversation about the finances of your wedding and honeymoon before you plan anything, before you pick a date, before you decide who you're going to invite, before like everything comes from your realistic, authentic budget. And so absolutely start there and you won't go wrong.
Yeah, love it. Sarah, thank you so much again. Like, literally, I feel like your time, your energy, your effort, what you put into this industry, couples who don't even know you yet should be thanking you because there's just
Oh,
so much value, I think, in what Honey Fund really provides. And, it's also just a platform for couples to not feel like, quite frankly, alone in this financial
right.
journey that they're going down and knowing that there are solutions that are
Mhm.
out there that can really aid in creating this celebration to not feel so financially stressful.
Yes, and we are absolutely here for every couple. We actually have a whole series of emails that goes out when the wedding is starting to approach. That's just like, "Hey, how you doing? Do you need to vent about anything?" And we just invite them to write us back, and our COO reads every venting email, and they're so good. And I just like, I love that we do that.
I literally love that. I will definitely link in the show notes, by the way, for everybody. I was referencing just some tools and things that you can pick up on HoneyFund. But if you haven't already checked it out, please do. There's like a ton of information pertaining to obviously not just registry and how to click your HoneyFund, but travel and all different things to relate. And Sarah, I don't know if there's anything else as far as what you think people, how they can find you, how they can message you, how they can send you event email.
Yeah, yeah. Sign up at honeyfund.com or download the app in the App Store, and you can absolutely reach out to our support team, support at honeyfund.com. We are here for all couples, whether you're using our site or not. We really, really believe in you being able to make your dreams happen and stay realistic to your budget and have a great marriage. That's happily ever after is what it's all about. That's why we're all here.
I love it. Thank you so much, Sarah, for all that you've done for our industry. It's a really big deal for sure.
Thank you, Brittany, so much for having me.